What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, OTB Nation? Welcome into episode number 273 of the allegedly award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast network. It's KB, it's Deej. The NLL playoffs are here once again. We're going to dive into the final week of the regular season, recap everything that went down, break down the postseason. We got a little news for the people as well, for who we're partnering up with somebody for the postseason that we're very excited about. We'll get into picks. We'll get into the PLL coaches / GMs meeting with the media this week prior to the draft. And we'll obviously get into Deej's college rundown at the end for the True Blue Sickos. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us at OTB LaxPod on Twitter, Instagram. Follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star review. It does go a long way for helping more people find the show, helps more people get involved with Underground Sports Philadelphia, and of course the Outside the Box podcast. We want to hear from you guys in the podcast reviews, so go leave a 5-star review on Apple, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. It really does help the show continue to grow. And go subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this podcast every single week. You get full video episodes of every podcast on our network throughout every single week, obviously. And that's where we also get, Deej, the PLL College Draft Extravaganza 2023 live stream happening on May 9th. You don't want to miss it. Set your reminders. Click the bell icon on YouTube so you know when we go live, when you know new episodes are uploaded. The PLL College Draft Extravaganza 2023. I'm telling you guys, we're dipping into the deep end this year. Last year was fun. We did some pack openings, I believe, during the draft. But this year we're going hard in the paint for the college draft on Tuesday, May 9th. You're not going to want to miss it. We have, what do we say, Deej? Probably close to 8 confirmed potential guests joining us on Tuesday, May 9th, that you will not want to miss. There's potentially more, so go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Can we get to 500 subscribers before the PLL College Draft Extravaganza? Right now, Deej, we're at 450 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Let's get to 500 before the College Draft Extravaganza, and if we do, we'll announce a couple of our guests on our social media pages. How about that? Go subscribe, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia, and go get your merch from our amazing merch partners at PHI Apparel Company, the official merch partner of our entire podcast network, and that's where all your OTB exclusive merch is available, because PHI Apparel Company provides unique designs and high-quality clothing for the great fans of Philadelphia and of our podcast network. With their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out in the crowd during the NLL playoffs. If your team made it in, you're going to games this PLL season. And, of course, if you're going to any of the college games, you're going to the college tournament Memorial Day weekend, which Deej and I will be there. You're going to stand out with your OTB merch. Our listeners can use promo code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any apparel when you shop online at phiapparel.co. Make sure you use that promo code so that they know you're coming from us. Code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all merch from phiapparel.co. Coach Deej, what's poppin', brother? I'm breaking the fourth wall for the people. We're recording this on Tuesday night. I have some things popping up later in the week, so we're recording a little early, but it works out because PLL coaches met with the media earlier this week. preview the playoffs. It works out. But what's popping, brother? How's life in Coach Deej's world?
I am grinding my way through season. We have another game, three games this week. We have another 3 games next week. So we've had 4 3-game weeks this year. So it's been tough because that's a lot on the guys, and it's a lot on our coaching staff. Well, coaching staff. It's just me and my assistant. So it's a lot on us as well to coach a lot of games like that. So it's catching up, but it's still a lot of fun. Watching tons of lacrosse and still doing the everyday job. So I am what do Americans call it?
As if you're not American yourself.
That thing they call living the dream.
I don't know if I've ever said it on this podcast, because obviously living the dream is Matt's intro to the main show. If you don't listen, go listen to that show as well. I had a customer at the day job, this is probably a couple months ago now, hit me with living the dream one nightmare at a time, which I was like, that's brilliant. And then I forget where it popped up, but it said, when white people say they're living the dream, that's just their code word for saying, I want to kill myself. I was like, that's morbid. That is not how I interpret that phrase.
That's wild. Yeah, like that's a little
Is living the dream a
edge.
little sarcastic here and there? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not to the lengths of that.
Yeah, that's overboard.
But
That's
I was
overboard.
like, God damn. That was crazy. Absolutely insane. The day job customers are a trip.
A trip.
Speaking of them, I do have a day job story today. I saw a living, breathing flip phone today.
Oh yeah, I saw one during football season. I was
Living,
like,
breathing
yes.
flip phone that looked like it was from 2002.
They need to bring them slide up Johns back.
You had the chocolate back in the day?
Nah, I think I had a sidekick. Is what it was.
Oh, yeah. That was the
Dang,
other one.
that.
The cell phone that back in the day, this was probably 2007 to 2000. No, it was probably like 2004 to 2007. If you had the Razor, you were the coolest person on the planet. If you were walking around with an LG Razor, no free ads, you were like the coolest kid in town.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore.
The cool kid starter pack from 04 to 07 was Razor, aviator sunglasses, skinny jeans, and insert fourth item here. But that was like core, like pieces to like swag. But we got a lot to dive into this episode. The NLL playoffs are here. We're going to recap week 22, though, to kick things off. Final week of the regular season in the books, Deej, as got spicy down the stretch, and things were very, very fun to end the regular season as the entire postseason is set. The final week went a little something like this, trying to navigate the NLL's website because they've updated things for the playoffs now. The Philadelphia Wings pull the quote-unquote upset once again and go 3-0 against the Rochester Nighthawks this season. They win 14-11. Rochester had kind of a late surge in the game, but Philly holds on, wins 14-11, goes out on a high note, finishes the season 9-9 this year. With that loss, though, it bumps Rochester down to the 4 seed in the playoffs. So now they have a date with the Buffalo Bandits in the opening round rather than the Toronto Rock. So look at that how you will if you're a Rochester Nighthawks fan. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but we'll discuss that later on. The Buffalo Bandits beat the Albany Firewolves 16-10. We'll get into the Winner gets in, loser goes home matchup in a minute. But the Seals hold off the Mammoth 11-8. The Riptide go on an absolute surge in the second half to double up the Vancouver Warriors 16-8 as Jeff Teat wins the scoring title with 136 points this NLL season. And the Saskatchewan Rush go out on a high note and hang on for victory in Vegas. They win 13-12. And then the Halifax Thunderbirds punch their ticket to the NLL postseason. They will be the 3 seed in the East. They beat the Georgia Swarm 17-11. Georgia does all that bouncing back this year for nothing, as they fall shy of clinching a postseason spot, losing 17-11 to Halifax. And the playoffs are set. This is the bracket following that Halifax win. So in the East, it'll be the Buffalo Bandits and the Rochester Nighthawks. In the winner take all, just one single game in the quarterfinals. And then it's the Toronto Rock and the Halifax Thunderbirds in the East. And then in the West, it is the San Diego Seals against the wild card defending champion Colorado Mammoth. And then the Calgary Roughnecks and Panther City Lacrosse Club in the other side of the West bracket. Very fun postseason. Lots of interesting matchups, lots of rivalry matchups. I think it's very fun that it's even, both 4 in the East, 4 in the West. Obviously, last year the Wings were the wild card, so they got bumped to the Western Conference side of the playoff bracket. But what were your takeaways from the final week of the regular season, Deej?
It was exactly what was expected in the last week. In the last week of a regular season, they still played hard. New York going out and giving them a run for their money. It's just all those kind of things. The Halifax Georgia game was fantastic, as expected. Total fireworks there. Georgia just didn't have enough, and that kind of sucks for the way the season went for them. That was kind of my biggest takeaway is you still got to you have to start strong. Like, they didn't start strong and they came back. They just didn't have enough. And starting strong means a lot. But that was kind of just my 2 biggest things is everybody still showed up to play, but you can still lose a lot just by not being completely focused.
And I think that's the case for 2 teams. It's Georgia. Obviously, they started at 0-7. And it's the case for the Wings, too. The Wings win one more game this year, they're in the playoffs because they went 3-0 head-to-head against Rochester. So they would have had the tiebreaker and gotten in as the 4 seed in the East. There were multiple games this Wings season. And obviously, for everybody at home, I'm breaking this down because I'm on the Wings beat and I cover the team all year long. So final send-off for them before we go into postseason mode, and I have no allegiances. There were multiple games this season, Deej, that we talked about it after every single week. The game on the road against the Riptide, that they just came out absolutely flat. And I mean, obviously they had played 3 games in a matter of a week, but their legs were dead, and they were very slow in that game. That was a game that they should have been able to win, but they weren't able to pull it out. The absolute, and I mean, this is the one that we agreed on big time, the absolute ref job that was that Georgia Swarm game in Philly. That final play, not getting a foul called there on Mitch Jones was crazy. There was that one. They should have beat Panther City at home in the first home game of the season, and they just did not, come out strong whatsoever, didn't play a full game. And then there's the argument to be had that they should have been able to win in regulation in Buffalo when that game went to overtime, and then Dane Smith wins it in overtime. So that's 4 games right there for the Wings that easily could have gone in their favor. And you add 4 wins to a 9-9 season, they're 13-5. You're in the driver's seat in terms of playoff positioning. You're right up there with Toronto, right up there with Buffalo for a top seed in the East. So I think there's a lot of things the Wings have to figure out this offseason. And I think it just starts with just consistency. I feel like there's a lot of shuffling parts this year for them. You started off, you bring in Joey Rez, in free agency, which was a fantastic move, and I think everybody would agree with that. But then, things get off slow. You bring in Mitch Jones. He helps reinvigorate the offense full-blown, and they looked like a completely different team as soon as he came into the fold. And then the defense was kind of just, stifled all year long, moving parts throughout the entire year. Hopefully they get a full year of Liam Burns again in this defense. They re-sign Mitch Jones, and it would not surprise me if the Wings are a little bit more stable across the board consistently next season, now that they'll have everybody in the stable for a full year.
And they know exactly what they're going to do. They kind of were starting to massage those ideas at the end of the year, really putting some things together, even without Matt. Their offense was finally starting to click and get some really quality looks. Their defense stepping up big in front of Higgs. So I think that's the biggest thing as well, is continuing to massage out those ideas and to really focus on those skills in the off time, because we could be the first.
Yeah, I mean, when you have the argument to be had the best face-off guy on the planet, which I think you and I both agree he is, and you have a top 5 goalie in the league, that's half your battle right there. Now it's just being consistent across the board. So a Wings season that was, fell short of expectations in a lot of ways, but finishing on a high note. They go 9-9, and hopefully they'll be back in the postseason next year. But Deej, the NLL quarterfinals. It's powered by our new friends over at Loading Lacrosse. We are partnering up with Loading Lacrosse. The boys over there, Tyrell Hammer Jackson, the homie, the dog, Chase Frazier, the homie friend of the program, Mitch Jones, and Keegan Ball are part of their pro team. They've got training sessions and camps available on their website with Tyrell Hammer Jackson for face-off control and Adam Charlambides as well with pro sessions. They've got some kick-ass merch as well. Our entire postseason coverage for the NLL this year will be brought to you by Loading Lacrosse. Very excited to partner up with them. Finally getting a lacrosse company on board with us after 4.5 years of doing this show is very exciting. That
You're
actually
welcome.
genuinely cares about us and wants to see us succeed. And the fact that it is player run and player operated as well really stood out to Deej and I. So go check out everything they have to offer at loadinglax.com. My personal favorite merch of theirs is they have the Chase Frazier cowboy shirt, and they have the keep hot dogs $1.50 as well, which I'm sure Deej and I will be rocking those shirts quite frequently throughout the postseason, throughout the PLL season as well. But they've got some great stuff on their website. They also have Deej. I think this is really cool. They have the Chase Frazier bundle on their website, which includes one Fraser Pro S handle, Fraser Pro S cowboy shirt, white or black, mesh kit and strings, color of your choice, all available for you. Tell me. I think this is a pretty damn good price for all of that. $165.
That's actually a really good deal.
You get a whole mesh kit and strings, a whole handle that Chase uses, and the cowboy shirt for $165. I think that's pretty damn good. They also have a whole bunch of stuff, custom heads available, the MJ24 Mitch Jones Pro Stock, the Gate Torque available on their website. They have Tyrell's Pro handle available, and some other equipment as well. So go check them out. Very excited to partner up with them. Shout out to Tyrell for reaching out, and couldn't be more thrilled, Deej, that we finally have a lacrosse company who wants to support the boys.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to start a snowball effect, and we're going to start having more lacrosse companies kind of knock at the door, and it's really going to help build some credibility as well. People want deals on lacrosse stuff.
So definitely go check out loadinglax.com for all of your equipment, merch, all that good stuff, and go support the boys. But Deej, the quarterfinals are here. We listed off the bracket, obviously. But with the playoffs here, limited matchups, and these are single game elimination in the quarterfinals. So we're just going to kind of dive a little deeper into these games. So do we want to start in the East, or do we want to start in the West, Deej?
Let's go West.
So we'll start in the West. The 1 versus the 4. The Seals versus the wild card Mammoth in San Diego. That game is going down Friday, May 5th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a rivalry, no doubt about it. These two teams play each other tough. It's physical when they play. Obviously, the last time these two teams played, Brody Merrill and Zed Williams got into a little ding-ding tussle, and Zed brought Brody to the ground like he was a linebacker. I like this matchup for both teams personally. I think they match up really well across the board. And, I mean, I'm not tipping picks here, but it is very tough to pick against the Colorado Mammoth in a postseason situation, just because they are like this gritty play. They get fueled by adversity and fueled by being an underdog, in my opinion. But obviously, it's the Super Seals as well. You know, they built this team for the postseason to have guys like Curtis Dixon, Dane Dobie, Kevin Crowley, across the board. They brought those guys onto this team for a reason, and that's why they're the 1 seed in the West. What are your thoughts on this matchup? I think this is going to be a maybe my favorite game of the weekend.
Really? Because it's San Diego. Who's the 4?
Colorado. They're playing each other.
It's an intriguing matchup because you know what you're going to get out of Colorado. They're one of those teams that has to just get in and then they'll figure it out after that. And they got Dylan Ward in that. He's going to show up. He always shows up at the biggest time. And with guys like Zed Williams and Connor Robinson and Clark Peterson, or not Clark, Ryan Lee, it's almost impossible not to score a lot of goals because they just find ways to get open. And as long as your eyes are up and you find them in the middle, they're good to go. But on the flip side is San Diego does normally play really good defense. They do have Frank Skiggs in that. Their offense is explosive. Like, the only thing that they could arguably benefit from is a faceoff guy. So, like, they're just in really good shape to continue like they're on now and not slow down.
Yeah, I mean, this season, Colorado finished with a negative 18 goal differential. They scored 190 goals, had 208 put up against them. And then on the flip side, 240 goals scored for the San Diego Seals and 193 given up, so a positive 47 goal differential. Colorado averaged 10 goals a game and averaged 11 goals against. This season, San Diego averaged 13 goals a game and averaged 10 against. Colorado went 9-9. San Diego went 14-4 in the regular season. It's such an interesting matchup because with this Seals team too, like, yes, they are built for the postseason. They have the experience of guys who have won championships in the past with Wes Berg, Curtis Dixon, and Dane Dobie. But you also have to factor in, like, you know, we just saw it in the NHL playoffs. The Boston Bruins were the best regular season team of all time and got upset in the first round. And it's win or go home in the quarterfinals in the NLL. It's a one and done before you get to your best of 3, and then obviously that's for the semifinals and for the NLL finals. But a one and done situation, like, anything can happen in one game, and that's what makes the quarterfinals, I think, in the NLL so electric and so fun. Is like it's open for any of the teams who qualify, and it is truly like the NLL is one of those leagues where it's like just get in the dance and anything can happen because you have one game to kind of go prove it before you have to go into your best of 3 series.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also just one of those sports where it's just all about hard work after a while. Like these guys all have the skill, so it's just about who wants it more and who's going to go out there and work harder. And it's normally that lower seeded team that's coming out like, hey, we have to work hard because this team is really good. And then it turns out that the other team was most likely looking down on them, expecting it to be an easy win, don't come out with the effort, and they end up losing. So it's definitely something they're more than capable of doing, but the dynamic just hasn't shifted.
And on top of that, Colorado's the defending champs. Like, they have that chip on their shoulder of wanting to defend their title and go back to back. So there's added pressure on both of these teams. Obviously, the Seals for loading up the way that they did in the offseason, having the fruits of their labor pay off, going 14-4. But then you have Colorado on the other side, who's the underdog, but they're the defending champs. So a lot to weigh in this first matchup in the West. Let's keep it in the West, each moving to Saturday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The 2 versus the 3. Your question mark Calgary Roughnecks taking on Panther City. Panther City's first postseason appearance in team history. Calgary, obviously, one of those teams that I think a lot of people slept on going into the year. Weren't really sure how they were going to perform with Curtis Dixon departing for San Diego, and they have themselves a fantastic season. Go 13-5, the 2 seed in the West. Jesse King and the rest of those boys balled out all year long. Panther City goes 10-8. They looked fantastic with their young guns, and this matchup is definitely my matchup of the weekend, hands down. I think these two teams are going to be absolute fireworks. It's going to be so much fun. I think it's going to be a very fast-paced game. But what are you looking for, like, forward to from this matchup in the 2-3 in the West?
Just confidence. Looking forward on both sides of the ball and just in both teams. You're in a position where you're in the middle of the pack, whether you're middle of the pack on your side, which also means middle of the pack in terms of both sides, which is closer to the bottom than you want to be. So transportation is big, effort's big, and then just trying things out, trying to perfect that craft.
These two teams can score too. Both teams scored over 200 goals this year. Panther City 204, Calgary 218. I'm going to say this, too, and I think you'll agree with me. The best goalie in the West side of the playoffs this year, based on performance alone, not, legacy and not just past performance, Christian Del Bianco he's my goalie of the year. He was phenomenal this year. Calgary, on average, only allowed 9 goals a game against them while scoring 12 goals a game offensively. They had a plus 51 goal differential this year. Our boy popped off this year, was contributing on offense with the amount of, outlet assists that he had. I think that is such a huge X factor, not only in this game, but in the playoffs in general. Like, I think Christian Del Bianco, and then on the east side of things, Nick Rose, those two guys are the best goalies in the league this year.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. They've played absolutely fantastic. And they've had a good defense in front of them to help their offenses are scoring. So, like, they don't feel the pressure to do a lot, which also combats the pressure that they feel to be good because their team is being so good. So they're kind of just mellow and able to play, and they've showed how good you can be when you can be focused and relaxed.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Panther City, they move fast no matter who they're playing. They're a quick-paced team. They have a lot of young guys between Donville, Malcolm, Dodds, the whole 9 yards with this team, and obviously they brought in Callum Crawford earlier this season via trade. I'm excited to see TK coach the team in the postseason. Obviously getting to know him over the last 4 years before he went to Panther City when he was with the Wings. I'm excited to watch him take the reins and coach this postseason. I think that's going to be a very fun chess match between TK and Kurt Malosky. the coaching matchup is going to be one to watch in this game for sure. But again, this is another matchup that I think benefits in a way, like both teams benefit from this being a one and done where anything can happen. And I think Panther City, if they want to win this game, they're going to have to set the pace early and kind of set the tempo of how, the ball movement is going to be, how guys' legs are going to move in this one. And I think that kind of tells the tale of this game early on, is just seeing how Panther City is able to have ball movement and kind of just the speed that they operate with.
We were talking about those dudes out east, the 2 and the 3. Hold on. We're back in the West.
Yeah, we stayed in the West. I put Deej to sleep with my analysis of Calgary and Panther City.
Pretty much. Oh man, that is. Oh wait, yeah, because that's why. Oh no. That's why my brain just it's late, and my brain kind of cut off for a second when you were talking about the time in Philly with TK. My brain went east. We're talking east. Okay, we're here. But no, that's what I wanted to hit on. Coaching in the quarterfinals, or not even just the quarterfinals, in the playoffs is slightly different. You get different butterflies, you get different nerves, you get different energy, different excitement. So I'm excited to see TK kind of have that role as a head coach for the first time and kind of be there to share experiences, but also share that first time with some of these guys. Some of these guys can be their first time playing in the NFL or the NLL playoffs as well, in the NLL playoffs. So it's like they're experiencing first at the same time, and they're kind of just going in with this mindset and this free will of play. They can kind of just go with, well, whatever happens. This is our first time. We're setting history anyway, so let's just go out there and have a good time and do our thing and hope for the very best. Really, I shouldn't say hope, but
it's so good for the league too that Panther City's in the playoffs, because now over the last 2 full seasons we've had Seals and Wings. Seals now back-to-back seasons get into the postseason. Seals got in their first year as well back in 2019, and then now Panther City gets in as an expansion team. It just goes to show, like, the expansion process in the NLL is working. The competitive balance is working. So that's a positive sign that another expansion team is in the postseason. But do you agree that, Panther City's going to kind of have to set the speed pace early in this one if they want to win?
Oh, absolutely. Because Panther City's young and they're good and they'll pick you apart, especially if they let you, especially if you let them run at their pace. Because ironically, even being young and slightly inexperienced, because they do have some experienced guys, some veterans mixed in here and there. They're very good at changing the tempo.
Mm-hmm.
They'll slow it down and play slow when they want to, but they'll also push it and play fast when they want to. So if you get caught in that trap of playing the tempo game that they want you to play, it's going to be a very rough game for you. So they kind of just have to be aware of that in terms of how things could go. But if you're really just giving them everything they can handle with Panther City and making them work for it, you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this matchup. This is one that, like, get your popcorn ready. It's the last game of the weekend too. So definitely strap in for this one if you want to watch, like, high energy, high speed, probably lots of scoring, I would say, or at least scoring opportunities, because I'm sure Christian Del Bianco and Nick Dambutte are going to pop out as well in net. But very much looking forward to this matchup. Let's move east, though, Deej. First matchup of the entire postseason happens Friday, May 5th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Up in Toronto, Halifax taking on the Rock. The Thunderbirds and the Rock in the quarterfinals here. Halifax, obviously we mentioned, clinched the 3 seed with their win over Georgia, and Rochester's loss to Philly. They go 10-8 on the regular season this year. Toronto goes 13-5. These two teams, you want to talk about teams that can score. Halifax 238 goals for this year. Toronto 234 goals for. But on the flip side, defensively, Toronto much more stalwart on the defensive side of things. Only gave up 164 goals this year to Halifax 210. That obviously is a credit to Toronto's defense this year, but obviously the boy Nick Rose had a phenomenal season this year and is definitely in the goalie of the year conversation. Both teams averaged 13 goals per game this year, while Halifax averaged 11 against, and just like Christian Del Bianco and the Calgary Roughnecks, the Toronto Rock averaged only giving up 9 goals per game this year. This is going to be an interesting matchup because Halifax likes to be gritty. They like to kind of play a little rough around the edges. They obviously have that swagger and that grit mentality with guys like Tyson Bell, Randy Stotts, Cody Jamieson. They want to get in your head and play a little mental warfare as well as playing the game that's on the floor, while Toronto is kind of that even-keeled, we're here for a business trip type of thing, and they want to keep it pushing to the next round. I'm super intrigued by this matchup and how the tone gets set early on, especially with it being in Toronto. Those fans are going to pop out 110%. This is a rivalry, hands down. Obviously dating back to when Halifax was previously the Rochester Nighthawks. These two teams duking it out year in and year out. But I think this game is going to come down to the big dogs being able to score. It's going to be Tom Schreiber, Dan Dawson, and Challen Rogers going up against the likes of Randy Stotts, Cody Jamieson, and Benny Boy. They've been balling out. These two teams score. Like I mentioned, 238 and 234 goals for, respectively, is crazy. I think this could be a slugfest for who advances. And this is the first game, and maybe Panther City Calgary's the same way. It wouldn't surprise me if either of these teams win.
It definitely wouldn't be surprised to see either team win. It's interesting because this is going to be one of those teams that tests the defense wins championships, because the offenses are going to do their thing. They're going to show up in this series or in this game, quarterfinals, in this game, because they're there. These guys are good. They can shoot the ball. They find the open spots. They place it so well. So like, we know that's going to be there, but who's going to come up and make a really good defensive play, put the ball on the turf, pick up the loosey? Like, that's what's really going to matter, especially loose balls and face-offs. Who can have the possession? Because when it comes down to it, this might end up being one of those, our offense just got more opportunities, or it comes down to a few opportunities or one opportunity, and having a good face-off guy or scooping up a ground ball, moving your feet, like all those kind of things really, really start to matter.
And this is the one matchup that has two of the three active this season. Obviously, Nards was injured this year, but two of the three active elite-level face-off guys. It's going to be Jake Withers versus TD at the stripe every single possession. That's going to be the transition game. In this matchup in particular, is going to be massive. Challen Rogers for Toronto, Ryan Tarafenko for Halifax, and the rest of these boys in transition. Like, it's going to 100% determine who advances. Colin Armstrong, Ryan Tarafenko are going to have to step up to go toe-to-toe with Challen Rogers, who you can make the argument is one of the best overall elite lacrosse players on the planet, especially in the box game with how he can go both ways, can stay out on the floor to play offensively, moves the ball in transition, and can get back on defense and still be top-notch defender. That's going to be my X factor in this one, is just who wins the transition battle from face-off to possession to who's able to move the ball down the floor. So if you want to watch transition lacrosse, watch this game from start to finish, because that's what is going to, I think, define this game, and that's going to determine who wins this game.
And that's not very often that it comes down to those kind of things. It often comes down to executing the right way and playing hard. But these two teams are going to come out and execute, and it's going to come down to stealing plays. Literally, like those are like stolen plays and those kind of things. So you're absolutely right. The stolen plays and the little quirky plays, those kind of things are what this game is going to come down to.
And let's also just not sleep on the fact that Halifax has an elite tier goalie. Warren Hill he's that dude. Like, sure, the stats may not back him up as much this year, but I think part of that is Halifax's defense was a little sus throughout the year, and he didn't get as many opportunities to like have clean saves and clean opportunities like he has in the past. But he's a dog, and in a one-game showdown, like, don't count Warren Hill out whatsoever. But obviously, the boy Nick Rose he's that guy as well, and arguably he should be goalie of the year conversation is him and Christian Del Bianco. So going to be a fun goalie matchup in this one as well. But Deej, the final matchup, it is the first game on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern time up in Buffalo. Bandit Land, home playoff game in a rivalry. Rochester, Buffalo. Rochester Nighthawks come into this one at 10-8 as well. They lose the tiebreaker, though, and will be the 4 seed. Scored 218 goals this year. I do have a stat that might surprise you once I finish off here. But they gave up 214, so a positive 4-goal differential this year for the Nighthawks. Buffalo Bandits go 14-4. They scored less goals than the Rochester Nighthawks this year. Rochester scored 218. Buffalo scored 215. I think if you would have asked anybody blindly who scored more goals this year, just off principle alone, I think 9 out of 10 people would have said Buffalo. That's a pretty surprising stat. Hats off to the Nighthawks for outscoring the Buffalo Bandits this year. But the Bandits' defense and Matt Vince, can't forget about old legend back there. They stepped up in a big way in the regular season this year. They only gave up 191 goals this year for a positive 24-goal differential. Rochester averaged 12 goals per game this year while giving up 11 goals against per game, and Buffalo averaged 11 goals per game this year while averaging 10 against. I think the story with Buffalo this year, Deej, they went 14-4, but they won a lot of close games this year. They won a lot of one-goal games, a lot of overtime games. Things were very nail-biter for the Buffalo Bandits this year as they're looking to get back to the championship game for a third straight year and get over the hump, while Rochester gets in for the first time as this iteration of the Rochester Nighthawks behind Connor Fields, Holden Catoni, and the rest of those boys. This is going to be an interesting matchup. It's a rivalry. It's in Bandit Land, who is one of the best home field advantages, if not the best, in all of the NLL. But I do think, the Bandits' tendencies this year of these close matchups could come back to bite them in a one-and-done situation in the playoffs.
Yeah, this playoff is going to be crazy, especially this game. This is one of those where Buffalo looks really good on paper. They know exactly how good they are. They know what they have to do, but it's also like, oh, it's Rochester. Like, they're not as good as us. Like, we know this. Like, we can tone it down a little bit, and that's when things get shaky. Is because then a team like Rochester is going to come in and they're going to play hard because Rochester hasn't been in the playoffs in a few years. They're known for making it far in the playoffs. They have their 3 championships in a row. Even though that's not technically this franchise. But still, that is something that the fan base will expect, is that they're going to go balls to the walls in the playoffs and maybe pull out an upset, if you will, air quotes around that. So that's the biggest thing. Is I'm interested to see how Buffalo comes out. Are they going to come out and I don't want to say blow them out the water, but come out and play how everyone is expecting them to play, put the punch on them early, and ride it and extend the lead to get some rest, or are they going to run into some trouble?
Yeah, I mean, these two teams, again, play each other tough every time they go out there. Just trying to find if I can. It's not coming up properly because the NLL just messes up their schedule thing whenever the playoffs start, but that's fine. This is one of those things that, like, it makes you question if Buffalo can get it done this year because they've been in so many close games, and, like, dating back to 2019, and Josh Burns said it after the PLL championship game, like, guys are going to get tired. We got to figure out player safety a little more. We got to figure out, ways to help guys play year-round, but also do it in a healthy and proper way. These Bandits boys have been on their feet non-stop, arguably for the last 4 years. So we'll see how, like, that prevails. But, I mean, in a matchup like this where it is one and done, where Buffalo has been very shaky and played in a lot of close games this year, you can't count Rochester out in this whatsoever. And, I mean, you got to love Connor Fields' revenge. That's obviously going to be in there. Fields, he's going to want to play the game of his life in this one to beat the team that traded him away to Las Vegas, who then proceeded to trade him to Rochester. And it's also very funny that these two teams meet because it's the same ownership group for both teams. But it's going to be a very fun matchup for this one. I'm looking forward to it a lot. And the quarterfinals are here. It's a one-and-done, single-game elimination. Anything can happen in the quarterfinals, which I think, Deej, that should just bring us on over to the old pick pond, and it's a playoff pick pond at that. And we feed the Ducks as we get set for the NLL postseason quarterfinals picks of the week, powered by our friends over at Trophy Smack. Guys, there's no better way to upgrade your fantasy smack talk than with our friends over at Trophy Smack. My fantasy football league just updated our trophy for the first time in a decade with Trophy Smack. You can do the same. They've got trophies, belts, metal wall art, rings. They do all the engraving as well. They've got last place trophies. It's all custom, and they're the best in the game. Go to trophysmack.com/underground. Link is in the description on YouTube and in the show notes on audio to upgrade your fantasy smack talk today and be the talk of the town with Trophy Smack. trophysmack.com/underground. Deej, we will start on Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time in Toronto, as the Toronto Rock host the Halifax Thunderbirds in the first Eastern Conference playoff matchup of 2023. How do you see this one playing out?
I think San Diego's going to win.
Well, Deej, Toronto and Halifax are playing.
Oh. How did that happen?
You were so confident with it, too.
Toronto, though. Oh, man, bro. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. That is bonkos. Well, now they know my pick for that, too.
I'm with you on Toronto, though. I think they just have the overall better roster, and that's no slight to Halifax. I just think the way Toronto's played this year has been top tier. It's been championship pedigree. And I think in a one-and-done situation, I think Toronto has what it takes to take down Halifax. Moving on to the nightcap on Friday. The wild card defending champion Colorado Mammoth head to San Diego to take on the Seals. Are you sticking with your winner in Toronto and Halifax? That is San Diego to win this one, Deej.
I am, in fact.
I am torn on this game simply because obviously everybody knows this is my Colorado Mammoth, my defending champs. It's tough as a wild card to go in and win. And like we mentioned during the preview, San Diego built this team for the playoffs. Like, yes, they went 14-4 in the regular season, but this is a team built for the playoffs that has championship experience, that has the grit and the tenacity to get it done. So I got to go with the Seals. I love my Mammoth. Would I be pissed if the Mammoth, screw up my pick here in advance? Absolutely not. We just jump right back on the bandwagon. We ride. But I got to go with San Diego to advance here in a one-and-done situation. But would it surprise me? Absolutely not. Moving on to Saturday's games, Deej. 7 o'clock Eastern time up in Bandit Land. The Rochester Nighthawks, the Buffalo Bandits. This game is going to be one that is rowdy, raucous. Bandits looking to get over the hill finally. Rochester looking to play spoiler. How do you see this one going down between two upstate New York rivals?
I gotta take Buff. Gotta take Buffalo.
I'm very torn on this game for all of the reasons we just mentioned when we were breaking it down. Rochester, they play Buffalo tough all the time, and Buffalo's played in so many close one-goal overtime type games this year where you said they look great on paper, but in a one-and-done, high-energy playoff intensity, can they keep that rolling in the postseason? I'm going to go Buffalo. I'm terrified about this pick. Would it surprise me if Rochester pulls the ultimate upset here? Absolutely not. But yeah, would it surprise me if Rochester pulls like an all-time upset? Absolutely not. It's a one-and-done situation. Buffalo has played in so many close games this season that it's a little scary. It's a little scary for the Buffalo Bandits, but I do think they get the job done in the quarterfinals. Last game of the weekend, Deej. It is in the Western Conference, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Panther City at your Calgary Roughnecks. This is my game of the week, in my opinion. I'm very excited for this one. A lot of speed, a lot of high-scoring opportunity, just like Toronto and Halifax have. Goalie of the year candidate in this game. The Young Guns of Panther City in their first postseason appearance, taking on the 2019 champions. Obviously, a little new look for them, but how do you see Calgary and Panther City playing out in the final game of the quarterfinals?
Oh, rolling with the Grayscale boys. This one's an easy pick for me. I love Panther City, and I like everything that they're doing and the energy they're going to come in with, how they want to play. But I think Calgary just has just a little too much right now.
I agree with you. I think Calgary has the home floor advantage. They have the postseason experience from a coaching standpoint. No offense to TK, but having a coach that won a championship just a couple years ago is huge in these type of games. And you have guys who are on that championship roster in 2019 that will help prep these young guys for the situations that they'll be in this one. And it's tough to win a postseason game for the first time as an expansion team, but I think this experience will be very good for them. Will it surprise me if Panther City somehow pulls an upset? No, because they have the talent to do it. But I think Calgary has enough of an advantage from a lot of standpoints. Plus, they have arguably the best goalie in the league this year, Christian Del Bianco, back there defending the net. So I'm going to take Calgary, which Deej, this could go one of two ways in the quarterfinals. We could have pure chaos now because we're on the same page for all of our picks, which congrats to you. You won the regular season by 2 games. Job well done.
Thank you.
Or
Thank you.
we could go undefeated, or we could go 0-4. The postseason is kicking off in a wild way.
I think we'll go undefeated. I like the vibes here. I've looked very
I would
good
like to see
this year. I mean, props to us. What was it?
Props to us indeed.
80.
I'm going to pull it up here because
To have 84, I think it was.
let's see. I have picks graphic pulling up right here. So you went 1, 2, 3. You went 4-2 last week to finish 80-42 on the season. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-1 to finish. Wait a minute, math is hard. You went 78-42, and I went 76-45. It's pretty damn good.
Oh yeah.
Combined 154 wins in the regular season between us. Not too. We kind of sort of know what we're talking about.
Just kind of, sort of.
Kind of
Which is
sort
crazy. Which is
of.
crazy.
Which is 78 wins in 120 games. That's a 65% winning percentage for you. And 76 wins for me. It's a 63% winning percentage. That's well above 50%. That's damn good.
Just
Pats
a little
on
bit
back.
there. Just
Shout
a little
out to
bit
Leonhardt. Pats on back. But there it is, our quarterfinals picks. We're on the same page. Toronto, San Diego, Buffalo, Calgary. Kind of going all favorites here. But this is the quarterfinals. Anything could happen. But those are our quarterfinals picks of the week, powered by Trophy Smack. Deej, let's keep it pushing from the box game to the PLL. Playoff dates got announced. We got a triple header on Deej's birthday. Labor Day itself. We've got the quarterfinals of the PLL going down, just announced this week. In Boston, Foxborough, whatever you want to call it. Gillette Stadium is the location nonetheless. 3 games going down on your birthday, Deej. What a way to celebrate a new year. Another trip around the sun than with PLL quarterfinals.
I really can't be happy. It's honestly such a great gift. It's free. It's gonna be a great time. It's playoffs, so people are gonna be bouncing. There's gonna be 6 teams in. Well, technically 7 still at that point because
7.
the
and
one
team
seed
will
just
still
won't be
have a bye.
playing. Yeah, I'm here for it. We're in Boston again.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I'm sure I'll find something else to do instead. I shouldn't say instead. In addition, but I mean, the game's going to be awesome. I'm excited to bring in another year with one of my favorite things on earth.
Morning to night on your birthday. 11:45 a.m. is game 1. 2:20 p.m. is game 2. And then on ESPN2, the nightcap, 5 p.m. Full day of lacrosse on Labor Day, on your birthday, in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium.
And maybe one of my favorite teams will play Monday Night Football that day.
Dun, 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 dun.
We'll have to take a peek at that schedule.
Hopefully
the good one.
Well, typically now the NFL starts the following week after Labor Day because the 17 games schedule, they pushed everything back. But
it is my birthday, so I might get lucky.
Long Island, though, the following weekend, Sunday, September 10th, 2 games on Long Island. Deej's first time going to the island.
Yep.
He's about to become an island boy.
Technically second.
First time PLL-wise, I should say.
Yep.
Right across the street, though, from the Coliseum is Hofstra University. Semifinal game 1, 3 p.m. on ABC. And then the second semifinal game, 5:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Sunday lacrosse for the semifinals. And then we have a bye week, which you and I are both a fan of. I I think they did that last year too, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a bye in between.
But it was
But-
in between quarters and semis.
Yeah, something. I think it was we have a bye between the semis and the championship, though, and of course we're coming back to the backyard where the championship should always reside. Subaru Park, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You agree with me. Nothing's better than the championship game in Philly. The
Yeah.
vibes are always high. Plus, we're in our backyard here after everything goes down, you know what I'm saying? 3 p.m. ABC, Sunday, September 24th. I kind of want / kind of don't want the Eagles to be playing on that day. Hopefully the Eagles have Monday Night Football on September 25th. Get Monday night out of the way early. But it's always a doozy. It's always sunny in Philadelphia, and September 24th is I think this is the latest the championship has happened since year one.
What if that's a Thursday game? Thursday week for you,
That'd be even better.
right?
That'd be even better. Mwah. As long as it's not Sunday. But I think this is the latest that has happened since year one, which I think was like September 19th or something like that. So a little bit later into the calendar.
Well, last year it was like September 19th too.
Yeah. So I think year 1 and year 3 it was like September 19th. But I think the bye week now implemented just pushed things a little bit, which I'm a fan of. I'm fine with that. Pushed it a little bit later into September, but very excited. PLL playoff dates announced. Our full schedule.
I don't think it's that bye week. It's the one in the middle of the season for Worlds. That pushed
too
it back.
probably pushed it.
That
Mhm.
definitely pushed it back.
The bye week now in between.
I think that pushed back the bye week
Mhm.
and the playoff. I think they're deciding to do it later because of the bye week in the middle of the season for Worlds.
Yeah,
Because they normally always have that bye week in between quarters and semis. And then they do semis and championship back to back.
Yeah, so it's like almost an extended, like a longer week leading up to quarters, because the bye week last year actually was in between last week of the regular season and the playoffs. So the regular season ends on August 26th, which is a Saturday, and then
It goes
we're
into
wrapping into
Monday.
the Monday for the 3 games. So a little bit of a longer week going into the playoffs, but not a full actual like bye week per se. But yeah, I'm excited. Playoff dates announced. Our schedule. We're working on getting everything situated. And Columbus, Ohio. If you're going to be in Columbus, let us know, because we are up to something. Deej, you were in day 1 of 2 with the PLL coaches meeting with the media. It's brought to you by our good friends over at Kenwood Beer, the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's a refreshing light beer that's 4.1% ABV, 127 calories, 10 grams of carbs. You guys can go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the Kenny tracker to see who has Kenwood beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You can buy Kenwood at your local Philadelphia area liquor store, or in eastern Pennsylvania, your local Whole Foods. Light body, light calories, plenty of flavor. The best light beer on the planet. You can also get it if you're going to the Sixers postseason games here in the second round of the NBA playoffs. You can get Big Kenny's at the Wells Fargo Center. But you must be 21 or older in order to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. These the coaches. They met with the media. You were in Monday's session. Our day job obligations just did not permit me to be in either of them, and you obviously were unable to attend the ones as we record this on Tuesday. But we got some quotes out on the tweet machine that we'll sift through. But I'll let you take the floor here. Break down everything that went down on Monday. Paul Rabel obviously was in on Monday's press conference as well, but what were some of the key things we should take away from the coaches / GMs meeting with the media, along with Paul Rabel?
Paul pretty much just hinted at how good some of the talent is coming in, setting up the coaches, and doing their first like live broadcast of the draft from the ESPN studios and just making it a little more formal, saying that him and Rachel DeCecco would be making the announcement of the picks, kind of what we see with the NFL and NBA, just trying to make the process more unified, more professional, that kind of thing, what we're used to seeing in the sport world. They're trying to make the avenue and changes into that realm of things. So that's pretty much all Paul had to say. And in terms, he was really just, hinting at his role in the draft and how things would look at from a viewing standpoint. And he was saying that they wanted to get ahead of the viewing parties for some of these guys, where they're watching with their families and their teammates, and getting those videos out so that they're real time for us. Kind of how you see in the NFL and the NBA, where, we saw like Arden Cohen hanging out with his teammates, but we saw that video late after he had already been picked, and it was well after he had already been picked. They kind of want to have that ready so that when those names are called, they can flash over to that, see that reaction, and then go back and continue the draft. So that was kind of where Paul was with that whole thing. He didn't speak too much, and there weren't a ton of questions for him. It seemed like everybody was just waiting to get around to coaches and pick and prod and figure out if they could try and find what guy people were going to go after. And some coaches weren't shy about throwing out some names. Sam Hanley got thrown out. Tucker Durkovic got thrown out. Jack Myers got thrown out. Gavin Adler.
Two names Paul brought up too.
Yep. Gavin Adler, Owen Grant. So like there are plenty of names thrown out by coaches. Coaches even said picks are up to be traded. Like they'll take best available. We have a really good defense, but this is a extremely loaded defensive class, so we'll still take defense. And many, many people said, a lot of the coaches were like, they talk so much about this defense, but the offensive guys in this draft are heavy too. So like, there's just a good mix of guys in this draft, and everybody's excited to get in and find guys that are going to gel in their locker room and be helpful. A lot of coaches are going away from the specialized midfield, going to two-way middies, guys that can play fast because of the shortened field, can get a little rough, play some D, and then leak out and be an option on offense so that they can get quick goals. So we're going to see some changes. We're going to see some things that are going to stay the same. But this draft is as wide open as you think it can possibly be.
Yeah, some quotes that were tweeted out from Kevin Boylard from TLN. Shout out to him. One from our guy, Nat St. Laurent. Quote, "I'm not afraid to make a move. We're going to entertain all offers." So the number 2 pick seems like it's up for grabs, and it's like, hey, come get it with your best offer. So that's going to be very exciting to kind of watch as that transpires as draft night approaches, because I feel like no moves for these picks will be made until draft night, in my opinion, just from the general vibe I got from some of these quotes. I feel like if any moves happen, it's going to be on draft night. But it wouldn't shock me if Nat makes a move. He is the move genius, if you will. He is definitely not afraid to make a move. Coach Staggs, a couple quotes from him, brought up our guy Joe Nardella, obviously recovering from his torn ACL. And Staggs said he's well beyond expectations in his recovery, and he's hopeful that he can play at some point this season, which would be awesome, because obviously we want to see the boy out there and back as close to 100% as possible. So hopefully Nards is, well along in his recovery and can get back out on the field this year, because the PLL it's a little bit less without Nards out there.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other guys, Withers, who's also in that same position. Matt Rambo's coming back from injury. Like Eddie Glazner, like these guys completely changed their team. And a lot of these guys, after talking to their coaches, are in good shape from what they told their coaches, from what their coaches have heard. Obviously, they're leaving that up to medical professionals, but we don't necessarily know how good they're going to be when they come back, if they return to that pre-injury shape. So there's a lot of questions around a lot of guys and teams. So I think those questions are influencing kind of some of the thoughts of coaches. I don't think they're going to necessarily go, oh, this guy's hurt or this guy's coming back from injury, so let me get this guy. But they're thinking twice about it, or they're looking at the player pool like, okay, are there guys here that I can grab for this position versus spending a draft pick on it I can draft at another position? So they're really taking full advantage of everything. One of my favorite quotes was Coach Brooks letting everybody know, or not Brooks, sorry, Coach Bates letting everybody know that he looks at mock drafts. And it just makes sense to me. Like, a lot of these coaches are coaching high school or college programs outside of the PLL, so they don't have the time to look at every game or look at every stat sheet and look at the highlights and call guys. And, they just don't have the time to scout, and they're not in a position yet in the league where they're paying guys just to scout and go to games and look at guys and gather these stats. So they kind of have to turn to us and lacrosse media and just regular lacrosse fans who are watching these guys all the time. They're looking at tweets like, oh, this guy gets tweeted about a lot. Let me check him out. Because, obviously people are watching him. Like, oh, they have this guy going to us at 4. I wonder why 500 people have us drafting this guy at 4. He must be pretty decent. So, don't think that your mock drafts don't mean anything and you're just putting it out there for banter, because some coaches are looking at it and they might find their diamond in the rough just because you think the same thing.
You know what you should do, Teach? And we could post it on social too. And we could send it to him. You should make your own mock draft and we'll send it to Coach Bates.
I might have to make a mock draft now.
I think Deej's official mock draft has to happen.
Oh, no. That's going to be so much thinking. Oh.
Hey, at least it's only 4 rounds.
That's a lot, though. 4 rounds, 8 picks, 32 picks, bro.
It's not the NFL, though, at least.
But
picks.
In the NFL, though, I can just start throwing out names.
True.
Because, there's so many guys. But there's so many guys in so few spots here that, now it's a problem. Because now it's guys are being strategic. Because they're like, okay, who would other guys draft as well? Because I'm not going to go after a guy that other guys wouldn't draft, because then it's I could have just picked that guy up in the player pool later. So, that's the tough part about making a mock draft in this scenario, is there are so many eligible players and so few spots for them to get drafted in.
Deej's mock draft.
It's on the way.
To a social channel near you. Another quote from Coach Stagg, speaking of trades and player movement, and Sam Hanley in particular. Doesn't sound like Staggs is interested in trading up from pick 6, where he said Sam Hanley may be a generational talent. We're not going to give everything up for an individual. And I think that was kind of shown in the way the Whips operated in free agency. Staggs said that, when they signed Will Manny, when you're picking towards the bottom of the draft every year, you don't get a chance to draft these generational players, so you go out and sign them in free agency now. They added Will Manny. Jay Carlson's still a free agent. They lost Gutty, but you still have Rambo coming back from injury. You still have Zed Williams. You still have Chaney as that offensive midfielder for this team who can rip from 2. I think the Whips are more than okay picking at pick 6 and not having to trade up for a guy like Sam Hanley. Not that, if you have the opportunity to draft him, obviously you do, but I think the Whips are more than okay offensively being able to stick with pick 6.
Yeah. I think we see them possibly trade up in later rounds to try and steal Sisselberger or that kind of P. Lasala, that kind of player to supplement for Nardella for now. And also, I think they do that because those players play very similar to Joe Nardella. So, one, you're not losing anything in the style that you like to play and the way you like to play. You can still run things the same, run your practice the same, run those drills the same. And 2, it's when he does come back, it doesn't change, like I just mentioned. And they can now learn behind him because they're playing that similar style. You're not asking them to add anything to their game or take anything away. You're just asking them to learn from a guy who arguably does the same thing they do, just a little bit better. And that's not even an argument thing. That's legit. Joe Nardella is one of the best in the world, and he does what they do just a little bit better. So now you can create, which shout out to my boys, can't wait to talk about them later. A lot of other people are seeing it, but Whitefeld and Nick Rowlett, Jack's younger brother, have been a fantastic tandem at the faceoff stripe for Michigan. They're pretty much the only team or program in the country running a very high efficient 1-2 punch at the faceoff stripe that win consistently. And to be able to do that in the PLL would be nuts, but that's kind of where they would be trending if they pick up a P.D. LaSalle or Mike Sisselberger, and then they get a healthy Joe Nardella back.
You brought up Chris Bates earlier. Coach Bates also said that they have good competition at goalie between Brett Dobson and Nick Wishuta, but they could still consider adding the position at the position in the draft. Obviously, Gitz left in free agency to go to the Cannons, so they're kind of in that next generation of goalie for the Archers, this new look Archers team. Also, I think one of the funniest quotes outside of him saying that he looks at your mock drafts, which it was clarified a little bit earlier today to not be in a disrespectful vein, which I didn't interpret it that way. I don't think you interpreted it that way. But Chris Bates on his draft prep. We're watching a lot of college lacrosse. My wife will ask me what I'm watching. It's some random-ass game like Jacksonville versus Bellarmine. That's just a great quote.
It is, because like a lot of people look at that and they're like, or like they think like, or they see that game and they go, coaches aren't watching this. Like PLO coaches are not watching this game. They're watching Duke play Virginia. They're watching Notre Dame play Syracuse. They're watching Ohio State play Maryland. But like, they're not. They're watching the High Points play the Richmonds. They're watching the Bellarmines play the Jacksonvilles, the Mercers, playing the Stony Brooks, the St. Joe's playing the St. John's. Like, that's where you find the diamond in the rough. Like he mentioned John Robbins later on, like that's where you find those guys who are like putting in the work, very, very good workhorses, locker room guys, because they just come from a different kind of program.
Mm-hmm.
A program where that kind of stuff is emphasized because that's how they're going to be a good team. Sometimes you run into programs where they're like, okay, yeah, we have all these talented players, so let's find out how to use all of your talents. And then you run into other teams like Jacksonville, where it's like, we're talented, but not as talented as other teams, so we need to love each other. We need to play together. We need to go hard. We have to want every ground ball. And, like, those kind of players immediately take that to the next level. They always do, because it's like that's just a core value that you hold on to, and you're going to fit into any team with those kind of values. So those are the kind of guys that they're looking for in those teams, and that's what we'll call it. Like, and other sports call them glue guys.
Mm-hmm.
But like those are just those guys that putty and they fit. You can move them around, and they help just bring the team together by doing the small things that don't have to be talked about but are expected.
Putty boys. Another quote here from our guy, world champion Andy Copeland. Says there have been some conversations about the Water Dogs potentially trading out of round one. He did not specify whether those conversations were with the Cannons, but they are currently the only team without a round one pick, and obviously the Dogs are at pick number 8. It wouldn't surprise me if Cope trades out of round one because they are running it back and just replaced Ryan Brown with Jake Caraway. So it's still this same championship team intact, and I think if anything, the Water Dogs are kind of just looking for roster depth guys in this draft because they not only ran it back, they signed everybody through 2024 pretty much. So they're going to try to keep this core intact for the next couple of seasons, and I think that's all Cope wants to do is kind of just add some roster depth in this draft, which I'm totally okay with. It makes a ton of sense because this roster is relatively young to begin with.
Yeah, extremely young. That's the thing. There are a lot of young teams, so they're running into a problem where they don't necessarily need to draft. So now they're drafting guys just for, longevity purposes, for bench purposes and practice purposes, which is like tough, but that's kind of where you want to be in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Is where you have enough talent to be doing that, and then that's when you talk about expanding teams again. So maybe that conversation will open up, and we'll see another team soon because guys are just banking talent now at this point because there's really nothing else for them to do but just go and get depth. Like realistically, what do they need? Nothing. They could get another face-off guy without Withers, which they'll have to do to have one on. But like we were
I
talking
think the only other
off pod,
position would
like,
be short stick D Mitty because DNAP retired.
but I mean, they have enough guys that go two-way. To be honest, like they don't
I'm
necessarily.
saying, like,
need,
if you had to pinpoint something, like,
I think they would just continue to draft two-way guys in that standpoint. A guy like I don't know why no one's really thought about this. I know he's not Canadian, but Garrett Ledman fits in with this program so much. He is such a Water Dogs guy. He plays out of Duke. He's an O-mid this year. Came out of high school as like an attackman or O-mid or whatever. Played 3 years D-mid at Duke, and now this year he's an O-mid. So he has the skills to run both ways. He's a physical guy. He can dodge hard. He can play D, clear it. Like he has all the skill sets to go two ways. He's fast. He's big. Like he's very much a Water Dogs guy. I could see them. You know, there's a lot of teams that are doing things like that, just going and getting their guy or a guy that fits just because they kind of have to use this draft pick. Like, there's nothing else for them to do.
Do you want a crazy stat about this Water Dogs team, too, and why it makes even more sense for them to potentially trade this pick for down the line stuff? There are 3 guys on this roster that are age 30 or older. It's our guy, Kieran McCardle. He's just turned 30. It is Liam Burns, who is 30, and Dylan Ward is 32.
I mean, I'm sure Atlas and Chrome are kind of close to the same boat.
But
I think they have a few more guys over 30. But
from a team that just won a championship too, like that's like one. Obviously, it makes sense why they're running it back, but 2 makes them all that more scary because they have the championship camaraderie, the championship pedigree now, and they're all in their 20s.
Yeah. So they got time to play with each other and continue to grow and get better.
Only one guy that's 29, and that's our guy Eli Gobrecht.
Yep.
What a team. What a team Coach Copeland has assembled. Then today, our guy, Andy Towers, met with the media as well. He was asked about the decisions to draft Jeff Teat in 2020 and Jared Bernhardt in 2021. Quote, "It was worth the risk, and I would do it again." This year, Towers says it's pretty clear who's coming out and who's not. I mean, you can't blame a coach, no matter who it was, for taking a dart throw in a two-round draft that was the 2020 draft and taking a chance on Jeff Teat, playing. And then Jared Bernhardt, it's a wild card. You know, if he plays down the line, you've got a guy. If he doesn't, so what? You know, this Chaos team, I think over the last couple of years, was one of the few teams who could afford to make those types of picks too. So you can't blame Andy Towers for doing that whatsoever, and I am fully on board with him. Like, I would do that 10 times out of 10 if I had the opportunity to draft those 2 guys and could afford to, like, take that risk. You do that every single day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, and imagine if that risk worked out and how crazy they would be.
Mm-hmm. Jeff Teat in that Canadian offense.
He'd be breaking records, in my opinion, pretty soon.
He was also asked on moving on from Mac O'Keefe, which I think is kind of the first time outside of, his like send-off tweet to Mac signing with the Archers. He said he wanted to play attack and be on the field all the time, and we never saw him beating out Josh Byrne on the lefty wing. Towers also praised O'Keefe as a person and competitor and says he's happy he has a chance to start with the Archers. I mean, I think we said it from the jump when Mac O'Keefe was drafted by Chaos that, like, him playing midfield, he was kind of playing out of position. Dude's an absolute dog. Broke Justin Gutterding's scoring record in college for the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history. So, like, for him to get the opportunity to go play attack now with his best friend, reunite with Grant Ament, I think Mac O'Keefe's career is, like, only going to catapult that much further into just how elite he can truly be in the PLL. And I think Coach Towers and the rest of that Chaos coaching staff giving him that opportunity and not, saying, hey, we're going to run it back, we're going to re-sign you, but you're going to play midfield. I think that was a generous thing from them as well, to be like, hey, go seek another opportunity to go do what you think you're best at.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, is giving them that confidence to say, just go do what it is that you do.
Coach Sudo says on how Chrome is planning to deal with Brendan Nichtern's military obligations this year. He said, quote, "We're not looking to replace him. It's not as big a deal as many people are making it out to be. Sounds like Nichtern may be able to take the field in July or August, from what Kevin Boiler tweeted out. That would be huge for this team. If they just have to kind of sift through the first month or first 2 months of the season and get Nichtern as like almost a trade deadline acquisition, if you want to view it that way, because he's just coming in to this offense. They have the talent to kind of stay above water without him too. Not that, you never want to remove a Brendan Nichtern from a team, especially how he played last year. But they have the talent on this roster to more than be able to handle the absence of Brendan Nichtern due to the military obligations.
Yeah, I agree. There's also some guys that can pick in this draft that can like supplement and kind of fill the role a little bit, but they also still have Jackson, who can go down and play that spot, and then somebody can take Jackson's role. Like, there's plenty of options here.
Peacock back up at attack.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts as big. Like he said, I don't think it's as big as a deal as people are making it out to be. Yes, it sucks because he was their leading scorer last year, and like that whole jazz. But they still have Logan Wisnauskas and a line of other people. So it's like, don't harp on one guy because one guy's not the team. I think that's kind of where he's getting at, is we are a very good team that have plenty of other options. So we're not going to harp and worry about one guy when we have 12 other guys here that can handle and do the same things that he knows how to do, which obviously, like, not quite, because they're not Brendan Nichtern, but
right.
They still know how to play lacrosse. They still know how to dodge, pass, shoot, catch. It's all part of the game.
Coach Sudo also seems like he's got defense on the mind, Deech, which I'm sure has you giddy. He says that if Gavin Adler is on the board at pick number 4, which would obviously come after 2 Atlas picks if the board plays the way that it is right now, and obviously the Woods at pick number 2, Sudo will draft Gavin Adler at pick 4.
I mean,
that would just make that defense all the more disgusting to add Gavin Adler to JT Giles Harris, Mike Manley, and Jesse Bernhardt.
If I'm being honest, he's probably going to get picked and go to the Chrome, because the Woods can pick D, but I don't know if they will. And Atlas doesn't really need it.
That'll be an interesting situation if Chrome really want to go get Gavin Adler. If they
trade up with Atlas.
Woods, or with the Woods to pick 2.
Yeah.
And jump ahead of Atlas's second pick. That'll be something to keep an eye on for sure.
But okay, so what player do they give up? Because they're not going to be able to trade just flat picks for that. And that's not going to go.
Unless it's a future first. I think Nat would do that.
But how good is a future first from Chrome going to be?
You never know.
Like, they're trending in that direction where a future first is in the bottom half. So,
but I think
the bottom half isn't terrible, but like,
if you look at a coach like Nat, though, he's the type of person that will put all the chips in the middle of the table and use 2 first-round picks to go and get a superstar to add to this team and trade their own pick and that pick, and kind of view it as like an NBA type of trade where you're trading multiple first rounders. Obviously, the NBA breaks it up because of the rule they have, but it wouldn't shock me like if that was a case, like hypothetical, where Nat gets a future first from Chrome and then Superstar is somewhat available for trade down the line. Nat trades multiple firsts to go get said Superstar. It's obviously all hypothetical, but he is that type of coach / GM
Yeah,
that would do that.
I see that, but it's just I think they're still in that win now mode because of like the age of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like they haven't turned the tide yet. So I feel like if he's gonna make that trade, it's gonna be something to help them win now. Like going back and getting Westberg and like some of the acquisitions he's made in the offseason have all been like win now moves. Guys who can really score, which has like been the problem for the Woods the past couple of years. The defense has been there, keeping them in 1 or 2 goal games, and they just can't score down the stretch. So it's like he's going and doing things that are like win now moves. So that was my only hesitation on it is I feel like if he's going to trade that pick, it's got to be for a player or something this year because they're in that win now mode. Like we don't have the team to build out. Like they have Ryder, who's even pushing being old. And then like the guys they've drafted the last few years, Nakai, Joe Robertson. But like after that, it's just like after the guys that we've drafted in the past 3 or 4 years that are young, coming out right out of school. And then the new guys this year, like everybody else is old, late 20s, early 30s. So it's like they haven't washed out the old and brought in the new like a lot of other teams have. Seen that with Chrome, seen it with Atlas. Chaos is even a team that started to flush out some of that and has gone relatively young. And the other one we were talking about not too long ago, Water Dogs are extremely young as well. So it's like they haven't reached that tide yet where they're pushing out the other guys, and those other guys haven't retired yet either, like we're seeing with some of these other teams. So the Woods are still very much in this win now mode, which is what puts me in that mindset.
Which they still have a relatively like in their prime core. Like you mentioned Ryder, he's 27, Jules is 27, Nakai just got drafted last year, Perk is 28. You signed Eli McLaughlin to a 2-year contract this year. He's 29 this year. Miles is 30. Anthony DeMeo is 26. Charlie Bertrand is, I think, 26, 27.
Yeah, he's on the younger end as well.
Isaiah Davis-Allen's 28. Chris Merle's 23. And
So,
then your defensive core is pretty young across the board from Arden, Garrett Epple. Eddie's 29. But obviously you got to see how he comes back from the Achilles and everything. Garrett's 27. Ryan Kennedy. Matt Rahill is on this roster still. John Sexton's 27.
So, yeah,
TD's 25.
And that's why I say they're like in like a win now, as in like the next, like this year, 2 years, maybe 3, because like all those guys are pushing 30. So like they're all like in their prime, and like within the next couple of years are going to be starting to exit it or are exiting it. So it's like if we're going to make those kind of moves, giving up the second best player in the draft, it's got to be for something. In my opinion, it's got to be for something that's immediate help, because those future picks aren't going to
I think the
really
future,
flourish in anything.
The future pick thing works for this year only. Like if he were to trade it for a future pick, like this would be the last year you could get away with it. Because even though he's still playing at an elite level, we got to be serious with ourselves. RP3's 33.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we're in this win now mode. Like we got guys like that still like leading.
Which is why
you can
like afford to do it this year. Like obviously, everybody listening, this is just Deej and I like we do this all the time off pod. We're just hypothetically like throwing scenarios out there. Like Nat gets the future first round pick for next year from Chrome in this situation. Can trade those 2 first round picks for an RP3 replacement somewhere. Insert player here, whoever it may be. We don't know who it is. This is all hypothetical. As I've said that 100 times, but that would be the situations where you accumulate the multiple firsts and then boom, trade them to go get your RP3 replacement if you're not going to put Jules there, to then have a guy who has experience already in the league, which I think Nat values a lot, at X.
I
and
just
that was proven in the RP3 trade.
so, and this is why I say you need to watch the college game, because I don't think the junior class is going to be strong enough to do that, to where guys are going to want to trade up and take those 2 first-round picks for a star caliber guy. Because it's like, this class is loaded. This is arguably one of the most loaded classes we have seen in a long time. After we just said this, like 2 years ago, I think. Like, it is so, and like, this is loaded because it's both sides loaded. Offense is loaded, defense is loaded, and there's still like 3 good goalies and 4 good faceoff guys. Like, that's insane. So it's like, you kind of have to take the chances this year on either, if guys are going to trade up, it's going to be this year. And you got to either take more picks this year and load up this year, or you got to just hope that somebody gets bamboozled if you take a pick next year and like takes 2 guys. Like, it would have to be like the Cannons take, or not even the Cannons, the worst team in the league takes it because they have the first pick. So they're going to get Brennan O'Neill. And then they just take the other pick because they're like, okay, we can get another very good guy, another top 8 guy in this year's class after we got the best guy. That's the only concept I see working in this standpoint, because that class isn't as strong as this class is.
And obviously every team would want a Brennan O'Neill. Hot take, putting it out there now. I think that's who Nat wants next year.
Yeah.
I think he might be plotting and scheming this year to acquire as much ammunition, no matter how this Redwood season turns out, to go into the 2024 draft and get Brennan O'Neill. Because you want to talk about how I just said he values guys with experience. Who's the one college guy on Team USA?
Yep.
Brennan O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's Nat's major plotting and scheming move. He's down the line a little bit, looking towards 2024 to replace some of the offensive struggles a little bit here and just get that turnover, like you said, and Brennan O'Neill is his target.
I also think he's going after a certain guy in the sophomore class.
That too.
That goes to a certain school that wore throwback unis last weekend. Their ex-attacked me.
I'm going to need a little more from you here, brother.
He was almost on the USA team. Paul Kark said he's the best player to ever wear his school's jersey. Virginia. Connor Schellenberger.
Oh, duh.
I think
Yeah, one of those.
he wants him to replace. Well, he possibly could get both. They're coming out in 2 different classes. I'm not saying he should tank, but he should tank.
Or maybe he's looking. You want to go full blown Winnie the Pooh meme, where it's just typical Pooh. There's hillbilly Pooh, and then there's like sophisticated Pooh. Maybe he's looking at somebody in his freshman class who everyone said was terrible after one game that plays in the dome.
Not Spolino. No way. Get out of here. Get out of here. He's not going to wait that long because Rob can't play for 3 more years. He's got to get something before that.
That's why I said it's a sophisticated Pooh meme. It's like the galaxy brain.
just can't exist.
You go from regular thinking to tinfoil hat to galaxy brain.
Because I mean, yeah, I could see it, but we just
Matt is
can't
gonna
rely on
clown us for this.
Oh
Because
my
I know
God,
he's
yeah.
listening.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? He's so excited to get me to wear that stuff. I brought it up. He's like, "You're gonna look good."
Man, I better get some polar bear gear too. What the heck?
Yeah, I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can work that out. I'm sure we can work that out. Sorry, my Adrian peeps that are listening. It's y'all's fault. I put my money.
You played yourself.
Man, I put my money on y'all. Y'all did not come through. I will not be putting my money where my mouth is next time.
New head coach and GM for the Atlas, Mike Pressler, on fielding trade offers. He said, quote, "I've had a lot of friends the past few weeks. Atlas obviously have the number 1 overall pick and number 3 overall pick in this year's draft." And then new head coach for the Cannons, Brian Holman, on a potential draft day trade. He said, quote, "We're not going to unload draft picks to move up in the draft." Holman said he's more interested in trading down from the 9th overall pick to accumulate more picks. Smart move. This team's obviously veteran-laced across the board from how they've had to construct the roster through free agency and the lack of draft picks. So I like that concept and that line of thinking from Coach Holman, and we'll see what happens with the Cannons. But obviously tune into the OTB Draft Night Extravaganza 2023 on our YouTube channel. You don't want to miss out on that. We have a loaded roster of guests confirmed and still pending to be on with us during the draft. So youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. Go subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on that. But Deej, let's wrap up like we always do. It's brought to you by our friends at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. Now that we know our date arrival for Long Island, we got to hit up the Tomahawk Shades guys. We got to finally do a podcast at Tomahawk HQ. They're the best small batch eyewear in the game for sunglasses, blue light glasses. They now have prescription lenses. And Deej, you've been wearing Tomahawk Shades all coaching season on the sideline. I'm wearing them all the time. I wear my blue light glasses when I'm editing and watching lacrosse on TV to protect my eyeballs from those violent blue light rays. You guys can get your own and check out everything Tomahawk Shades has to offer for a fraction of the price of the big eyewear companies at tomahawkshades.com. And when you go to checkout, use our promo code USP for 25% off your order at tomahawkshades.com. Oh, and did I mention they're owned by 2 former lacrosse players, 2 GOATs, Kyle Harrison and Super Bowl champion and former member of the Cannons and Whipsnakes, Chris Hogan. tomahawkshades.com. Promo code USP for 25% off your order. Deej, break it down, the college lacrosse Week 13 recap.
So, let's get into this. A lot of conference playoff stuff started. Some people wrapping up conference play these next couple of weeks. So, we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Navy over Bucknell, 12-9. Colgate coming out big over Holy Cross, 22-9 was kind of crazy. Drexel moving on, 16-7 in their tournament. Georgetown getting a big win over Nova, 12-8. Nova had been, crushing it. I think they had won like 6 in a row or something like that. And they were looking very good. Georgetown put a stop to that. Denver coming out on top over Marquette, 15-14. Marquette had it rough for the last 3 or 4 weeks of the year and just lost every game in overtime. They just got it really rough. Lehigh bringing an end to Loyola, the Greyhounds. They had a fantastic year this year. They beat everybody in Maryland and absolutely owned the state. And then Lehigh kind of bringing things crashing down. UMass taking care of Hobart, 13-9. And Army West Point 12-11. Army lost to Boston U 12-11 to wrap up the action on Friday. That random-ass game, Jacksonville over Bellarmine ended 13-12. OT in the Ivy with Princeton and Cornell. Cornell over Princeton 14-13. Yale over Harvard with arguably the best best and most disrespectful Sally I've ever seen in my life. You see that?
Which one?
Where the kid rips it, scores, and then turns around on the kid and goes, like, in his face. Like, he's literally, like, in his face. And it's just like,
That's
I was
hilarious.
like, oh, that's it. Right? So funny. Like, and like the refs didn't call a flag on it or anything, just let it fly. And I mean, I'm guessing because it's a rivalry game. I mean, Harvard Yale, like you gotta let that go.
Look at the Ivy League finally showing some character and some spunk.
I know, right? Detroit Mercy not handling business and letting one of those teams from that terrible state down south get the up on them. Cleveland State, 14-12 over Mercy. Duke and Syracuse was a fantastic game, 18-15. That was a very good game. Duke looked just fantastic on offense, but anytime you have Joey Spallina and a Curse brother on the field together, it's going to look fantastic. So they were able to pull some things together as well. So that was a very fun game to watch. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, that's definitely worth spinning the block and watching on ESPN on demand. St. Joe over High Point, 17-11. Brown over Dartmouth, 13-11. Marist putting up 29 on Quinnipiac. So at least Quinnipiac lost in something. Still a little salty about the Frozen Four. Maryland over Rutgers, 14-11. And then I'll save that one for last for Saturday. So excited about that. Lindenwood had a very good year for our second year in D1, but they dropped to Mercer 12-8. Vermont getting a win over UMBC. Air Force over Robert Morris. Binghamton pulls out a 15-14 win over UAlbany. In a very close game. Merrimack moving on in their tournament 12-9. Excuse me. And Stony Brook takes care of Hofstra 11-10. Providence squeezing out an OT winner 12-11 over St. John's. St. John's had a very tough season this year. Looking for them to bounce back next year. Townsend with a huge upset over another number 10 Delaware 15-10. And Richmond taking care of the Bonnies 26-10. And that's where we rest on my fellas. Hail to the victors, baby. Taking care of those wannabes from down south. Again, 2 weekends in a row. Back-to-back wins, 14-10 this time in Michigan Stadium again. So very excited for that. And then moving on into the next round of the Big Ten tournament. They'll take on Penn State this week, which will be very much an uphill battle. Virginia coming out 12-8 over Notre Dame was also a very, very good game. And if you haven't seen that one's also on ESPN and worth the watch. It was a defensive game. Nunes and Entenmann looked great in net. Their defenses looked good in front of them. And the shots that did go in were spectacular. All around, one of the best lacrosse games we've seen in a very long time. Bellarmine taking out Mercer 14-13 as we record this Tuesday night. So they're moving on in their tournament. Lehigh also moves on with a 12-8 win over Lafayette. Robert Morris takes down Jacksonville 9-8. And Loyola Maryland taking down Navy 12-7. So upset I can't talk about any of the Thursday games. This is the stuff we really want to see. Townsend and Delaware are going to go back at it as they start conference play. So are St. Joe and High Point. Maryland and Johns Hopkins, Michigan, Penn State. Winner of those will face off in the championship game of the Big Ten. UMass, Richmond, UAlbany, Vermont, Villanova, Denver, Providence, Georgetown. So Thursdays. I'm sorry I can't talk about it today as you're going to listen to this on Friday anyway. So I hope you got a chance to listen, or sorry, you got a chance to watch all of the conference play on Thursday, because some of it's tournament play. Most of this is tournament play. So it's really going to heat up, and this is the best part of the year. So I'm excited to see how things shake out, because looking at Friday, Princeton and Penn are going to play. Bellarmine is going to play Utah. I believe that is for their conference tournament championship game. Yale and Cornell are going to go at it. Lehigh and Army, Loyola and Boston U. Notre Dame and North Carolina play again on Saturday. That one is in North Carolina. So that one will be worth watching. Merrimack is going to play Duke. I don't even know what to say about that game in all retrospects, but that's going to be the last game that we have up. That's Sunday the 7th, and then we're going to be getting into conference tournament play for everyone, and then Selection Sunday is going to be up real close. So it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. I'm just happy that Michigan lacrosse is on its way up.
It's going to be a fun stretch ride. Memorial Day weekend right around the corner. First episode of May 2023 for us here. But like we mentioned throughout the show, guys, don't miss out on the PLL OTB 2023 College Draft Extravaganza, May 9th, 2023, exclusively on our YouTube channel. It's only going to be on YouTube. That's the only place you're going to be able to watch, youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. We have a loaded lineup of guests joining us throughout the draft. It's going to be a blast. We're going big. We hope you tune in. We hope you're in the chat with us. We're going to be interactive in the chat as well, taking you through pre-show, taking you through the entire 32-pick selections of the PLL draft. And we're going to have a post-show, too. We're going to post-show and everything. Plus, you get a podcast episode next week as well on top of that. So you don't want to miss it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the bell icon so you don't miss out. Let's get to 500 subscribers before the draft extravaganza or during it. Let's get there. We're 50 away. I know there's 50 of you out there who aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet. Go subscribe, because I guarantee this is going to be the best draft companion show for the PLL on the internet. So go subscribe. And be sure to follow us on the socials at OTB Laxpod, Twitter, Instagram. Follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps the show continue to grow on audio, helps more people find OTB, and helps OTB Nation go to the moon. And like I said, subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. Go get your merch from PHI Apparel Company, phiapparel.co, code underground for 10% off any and all orders. Get your OTB merch. Tweet at us and tag us on Instagram when you get it. We want to see where you're rocking your merch from. It is the most effective way and direct way to support everything we're doing. So go get your merch at phiapparel.co, code underground for 10% off your order. This has been episode number 273 of the allegedly award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, viewable on YouTube, an official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network, the Outside the Box podcast. We will see you guys Tuesday night for the college draft. But until then, for Deej, I'm KB. We are getting the heck up out of here. Peace.